Almighty, protect my family, protect my friend them. Patriots. Yeah. Represent for your real one. Represent for your real one. Almighty, protect my family, protect my friend them. Patriots. Yeah. Represent for your real one. Represent for your real one.
Yeah. Bless up, my brother. How you
Yeah, blessed
doing?
up. Queen, I'm good, man. Nice to see you
Long
again. It's been a
time.
while.
I know,
Yeah,
I know. What, eight
yeah.
months or something like
What?
that?
Yeah, hey, you
Well,
couldn't.
it's been a long time since we podcast. We still talk on the
Yes.
Facebook.
Yeah, your face is shining, man. Good life.
Yeah, well, you know what? I try to keep it positive, brethren. I'm gonna be honest with you. There's been some trials and tribulations, but I'll be
As
pressing on.
always. Yes, yes, we
Yeah,
have to, we have to. We have to. But it's not really nice to see you again. Thanks
yeah,
for inviting me
likewise,
on.
likewise. And it's
Yeah,
always
man.
good to have you on the platform because you always bring in some real
Yeah.
talk. You always bring in some good topics and come in with the
Mhm.
realness.
Yes, you know already. I try to be as real as I can be. You
Exactly.
know? Yes.
You know, the last time we had this type of conversation on Freeze Isaac's platform,
Oh, oh yeah.
it didn't go too happy.
Ah, yeah, I haven't heard from Priest Isaac again. But he was in St. Lucia and he actually visited my elder in Grass Street and he was looking for me. But I don't know, but I was preoccupied. I think maybe I was at work,
Oh
because
yeah.
I have work because I work with the government. Then I have the
Oh yeah, you was telling me
classes.
that you were teaching and things, right?
Yeah, then I have the classes, and now we're doing some African history presentations in the schools.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah, I can. It's pretty busy.
Wow,
Yeah.
I like to hear that. Look like I need to come to St. Lucia.
Well, you'll be welcomed, of course. Yeah. So we got the go ahead from the chief education officer, and the president. Well, actually, my teacher left instructions with me before he passed, and he told me that I should um, raise up the president into the knowledge that we gathered this far,
Yes.
and that's what I'm doing. I'm trying to raise him up into the knowledge because he's quick-witted, he's very smart, but he's just being stifled with a lot of elders talking a lot of shit. So they're tying him up, they're tying up the organization. A lot of them don't like him. When he's not there, everything is dead. When he's there, we get a lot of funding, grants, things start to happen.
Oh, okay, okay.
But it's just that a lot of races, they sit and they do nothing,
Hmm.
and they want money. you know
Yeah,
but that's
everything
not
is
how it
based on
works.
money.
Yeah,
Exactly.
for you to make money, you have to have something to offer. You have
True.
to have a knowledge base in something, whatever it is, to try
Hmm.
to bring in people. But they're just there, and they nothing is happening. And when he comes, all of a sudden money starts to come in, and all of a sudden big controversy. They want to know where the money go, where this money go, where that money go. So
Right, right.
yeah, so my elder told me to just be with him,
Hmm.
teach him what I have to teach him,
Hmm.
uplift him. And he told me it's gonna be difficult because the races are stuck.
Oh
They're
yeah.
stuck. Yeah, they're
Oh yeah.
stuck. They're stuck. Yeah.
And it's stuck in a sad way too. You know what I mean? They will die
Yeah.
that way. They're gonna die like that, brethren. They're gonna die like
Yeah.
that. And
Yeah.
most of the time, I notice that if you are, if you happen to ever be face to face with some of them, they'll probably try to hurt you.
Yeah, 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 because they don't have the words to express themselves. So
Hmm.
most times they get angry and they want to turn to violence.
Right,
But
right.
But the speech is the greatest thing. The speech, with a speech, you can have so much effect on people. You can either raise them up or bring them down. You know,
Yes,
yeah,
exactly.
just with the words. So, and we
Hmm.
have to we have to know how to use our words. And a lot of
Yeah.
races, unfortunately, they haven't. They are not. They are not intellectual people. They are more visual people. Because I remember we had an exhibition. In fact, I was told there was an they invited me. The same president invited me to give a lecture. Now that
Mhm.
lecture was on the history of Christianity. So
So
I
is this
came to
the
give.
president of St. Lucia or the president of the education department?
That's the president of ICAR, the Ayanola Council for the Advancement of Rastafari
Okay.
and Pan African people.
Hmm.
Because that was another controversy again. They said, why we have to put Pan African in there? Rastafari has been Pan African. Rastafari is Pan African.
Not
But they don't
really. Not all of them.
know. Well, you see, they don't understand because Pan African is political.
Hmm.
Rastafari is looked at as spiritual.
And
So
religious.
people on the outside, when you say Rastafari, they exclude themselves. But if
Exactly.
you say Pan Africanist, then they'll say, oh, well, I'm all for Africa. Even though I don't smoke weed, even though I don't see Haile Selassie as God, I'm a Pan
Hmm.
African, you know? So
Right.
it's all that
They still want the
individual.
liberation of black people,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. It's all of that individualistic thing of, the competition thing and my thing is holy and yours is not. You know and that is dividing us. So the president added Pan African, because not from the inside looking out, but from the
Yeah.
outside looking in. you know
Yeah.
and he had to break it down to them. They were arguing, they were quarreling. They had a meeting, and I was so, because I joined ICA, wow, 2002 or something like that. I joined
Mhm.
ICA. But since I was more with my teacher, we were just in our books and our studies. I never really mingled with. I stopped going bingy, and so recently they wanted to do a libation, and they asked me to come and do the libation for African Liberation Day, and I went, and
Okay.
and I went and I did that, and then they pulled me in, and and things started to happen, one after the other, and right now we are going to the schools. I bring my African masks, my African artifacts, and I talk about our history, Imhotep, the pyramids,
Wow.
and so the children love it.
Mhm.
So you can see something is happening, and I made it my duty from a very tender age to not make any Christian make me look foolish. I think that was my
Oh yeah,
main
because they come
drive.
with the Bible and they want to
Oh,
Bible argue, you
oh
know?
yes, oh yes. I made it my duty as a youth, as a young youth, to never make a Christian make me look like a fool. So that's why I've been beating the books, beating the books, beating the books, beating the books. So right now, I
Mhm.
welcome questions, you know,
Right.
because I think I'm learned enough to deal with the Christians on a level.
Okay. So did you have that controversy with them? How was it?
Well, the controversy with amongst the races
Not the Christians.
or the Christians. Oh well,
Hmm.
the Christians. There are certain books I've read, where these books go into the Bible and show the contradictions. You know, the contradictions of geographical errors, you
Hmm.
know, and contradictions of the Old and the New Testament, and the historicity of the Bible. So when I go into that, most Christians just leave me alone, because I ask them certain questions, like for instance, when I ask the daughter, does she think that women see their menses because of the first sin woman created?
Mm.
That alone have them double thinking. They'll put their hand under their chin and start to think, you know.
Because that's the
And
first time they ever had to think about
yeah.
it.
So I asked them just simple questions to make them think about, you know, a God that created everybody. Why does He have a chosen people? Think about it. You know, Moses murdered a man, and he went to Mount Sinai to get the tablets that said, "Thou shalt not kill." You know,
Right.
think about it. And when he got the tablets, he came down and he slew a lot of people because they were worshiping the golden calf. The golden calf never killed anybody.
Mm.
So, so you have to analyze the goodness of the Bible. Is it just a superstitious goodness? Is it real goodness? The God he killed almost everybody on the earth, saved only 8 people, but he never killed the devil. So,
Right.
we
Tell
have
us
to
not to kill.
analyze.
Hmm.
So we
And
have to
still tell us
analyze
not
them
to
things.
kill.
Yeah. So it's just going into the doctrine of this because it was originally our story. It was our
Right.
stories they came and because they didn't have anything. So when
Hmm.
they came down and they witnessed the civilizations in the southern cradle, then they took it, they took what they wanted and they adapted it to their perspective, their environment, because their environment was barrenness, depravity, scarcity, patriarchy,
Hmm.
xenophobia. So their God had to be in their own image, practicing the same thing: individualism, xenophobic, you know, and that's the
Yes.
deity they created, the deity called Yahweh, you know.
Mm.
Yeah, so this is what I've come to expose, and I think African people we shouldn't, especially Rastafari. We started hailing His Imperial Majesty, not even worried about who he was praising or
Right.
what was his religion. Our main thing was he was an African king when slavery was still running wild in the world.
Hmm.
And not only he was just an African king, but he also stood for Pan-Africanism.
Hmm.
He also stood behind the revolutionaries, you know, and
Hmm.
that carried more weight than who he praised because we know your religion mostly has to do with where you grow up, your parents, your teachers, because all religions, they basically teach you morality, you know, to be
Hmm.
a virtuous person and these things. So all
Right.
religions give you these values, you know.
Mhm.
But with the Bible and the Judeo-Christian myths, it also has this underlying concepts of it's my way or the highway. That
Yes.
this God is actually a God of colonialism, a God of colonization, colonizing other gods. So the people themselves, because there's little difference between the Israelites and the conquistadors. The
Mm.
Israelites came in to take the land from the Canaanites and to fight the
Mhm.
Canaanites. The conquistadors came in to do the same thing,
True.
and they came in with the cross. God told them that they should Christianize the world. And if you don't believe in their God, then you're on the
We will
wrong
die.
side of yeah, you're on the wrong side of the fence. So this is what brought a lot of the world wars. But this show is really about the Al Kitab, the people of the book. The people of the book means the Abrahamic faiths,
Mhm.
Muslims, the Jews, and the Christians. And these three, when any one of them is ruling, the other just pays a tax. When the Moors were ruling in Hispania, where we call the Iberian Peninsula in Spain, they imposed a tax on the Christians and the Jews. But the traditionalists, the Sangomas, what they call the witch doctors,
Mhm.
they were worthy of enslavement. So, is Rastafari against African traditionalists? What did the African traditionalists give to the world? Everything. We gave them the concept of divinity. We gave them geometry. We gave them mathematics. We gave them writing, abstract thinking. The Medu Nature is abstract thinking. We gave them the police. We gave them law. We gave
Right.
them almost everything they have today. We gave it to them. And that was not under any, um, well, I'll call it what it is, any henotheism. Because henotheism is one God amongst many. Monotheism is just one divine entity.
Mhm.
If you're oppressing people because they believe in other gods, that means it cannot be monotheism. But if you're tolerant of people, realizing that their deities are only expressions which they got from their environment, then you realize that you're all dealing with the same supreme being. So Africa never had any wars on about my God is better than your God. That only came with the Abrahamic religions. So that is not true monotheism.
Mhm. Mhm.
So that's the Al Kitab. Are we to, because it was when ones like the great Ahmed Baba. Ahmed Baba was one who wrote around 70 books in the University of Timbuktu. He was a scholar, one of the top scholars. And when he was captured by the Moroccans and they took away his library, he said, hold on, hold on, hold on, hold it there. I am a man of the book. The only people that are worthy of slavery are the traditionalists who worship trees, who worship the wind and the rivers. These are the ones they do not praise the God of Israel, the God of Abraham. Yeah? So you can see that even the African turned on his own because of these divisive religions.
So was the Moroccans, were those the Arabs, you think?
Well, they had so many different dynasties when it comes to, they had the Almohades, the um,
They,
the
they had.
Almoravids,
Mhm.
they have the Umayyad, they have the Madrids, so many different dynasties. Some from Muhammad's, I think his daughter. They claim this the descent from his daughter. Some claim descent from him. So they were all these different, because they were fighting amongst each other,
Right.
the Muslims, you know.
Right.
And Africans began to practice what we call Sharifism. That means they claiming descent from the Levant and not from Africa. They claiming descent from Muhammad and not from their people. So we started to see a breaking down, because ancient Ghana, when Al Bakri speaks about ancient Ghana, you see practices from the Nile Valley still being practiced in Ghana, the kingdom of Ghana. And then slowly with Mali and then Songhai, you see the Muslim influence coming in. And you see Africans turning on each other, you know, because that's what it is. If God asks a man to sacrifice his child to show his love to him, there's a problem there, because the God of the Father should be the God of the Son, you know. So you can see this element of competition. It was this same competition that brought in capitalism. Christianity was the forerunner to bring in capitalism. This competition, you know, competing with your fellow man to see who is holier than thou. You know? So that's why the Europeans in the movement love where it is. They love where it is, and they don't want to see it change.
Because even the houses of Rastafari are in that same competition division that you speak of right now.
Yes.
Bobo think they're more holier than Bingy. Bingy think they're better than 12 Tribes,
Yes.
Orthodox,
Yes.
EWF. It's just a big show.
Yes, because from time we opened the doors and let the Europeans come in, they came in on the altars, they came in on the pulpits, they became prophets, they became priests, you know. And of course, wherever the European comes, he wants to control. It's in his DNA. That's what he knows. What he wants is control, you know, and he loves where it is. He loves where it is because he wants to feel included. And if we go back to our African roots where he's excluded, then he has to get out. He has to get out. And our spirituality, he doesn't understand it. He doesn't understand that one man cannot be God with the big G, or should I say the nature. It's the totality of everything that is the nature. The totality. One person cannot carry that title of being the supreme, the creator of galaxies. The creator of galaxies, having or being omniscient, knowing everything. No. If you know everything, then even the scientists don't know how a perfect man would behave.
Yeah, because science is always being revised, reapproved, you know?
Right. That's how we did it.
Mm-hmm.
Our scientists were also our priests. That's how we did it. We were always revising because our creation stories didn't come from divine revelation. Our creation stories came from thousands of years of observation, thousands and thousands of years of observations. That's how we were able to track the movement of Sirius or Subdet or what we call Potolo, because we were documenting, we were analyzing, we were passing it down through generations. It was not about divine revelation. They came with divine revelation, that there's a God and a God only speaks to them.
Yeah.
It happened with us too, with Akhenaten. Akhenaten said that he was the mediator. And to get to the divine, you had to go through him. So when we see these faiths come about, their handmaiden is religious intolerance, which brings violence, which brings a divine few ruling the hellited masses. But that's another thing for another show. When we talk about royalty in the blood, royalty belonging to certain bloodlines, it goes back to the Bible, that this God would just have a chosen few, not for their works, but for their bloodline. So the deeper you go and you analyze the biblical stories, you get to realize that this book is very divisive. Very divisive. And it's anti-nature and anti-African. The more you study it, the more you read it.
Why you say it's anti-nature? Because people will think that they can see nature in the Bible.
Yeah, but they tell you that woman did not come from man. No, man did not come from woman, sorry. But woman came from man. A woman has a child, a woman alone that can carry a child.
Right.
All men come from a woman. Just lift up your shirt and you'll see the connection you had with your woman.
Yeah, with your
The biblical cord. Yeah. So it's anti-nature. And it's anti-African. The patriarchy, the bigotry, all this is un-African. We never claim to know God's name. They claim to know God's name. We had descriptive words for the divine. Nebecher.
Exactly.
I'm in a live interview there. Okay, Iron. Yeah. Sorry about
in
that.
The classroom?
No, that was my mom came to tell me about my daughter.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
How's she doing, by the way?
Well, she's there, sometimes frail, sometimes good. You know how it is at that age. She's like 76.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I mentioned, well, yes, your mom, of course, but I was talking about your daughter.
Oh, my daughter, she's all right. Troublesome.
Yeah.
Makes me talk a lot. But, it's a joy to have them around.
Right.
Yeah, it's a joy to have them around. Yeah, so right now, Rastafari have to analyze their philosophy. Most of our songs from our past singers, foundational reggae, most of it is around Bible. We can still listen to our music. Just realize that the times have changed. And slowly, we're going back to our origins. We're going back to our origins.
Right.
At the time Rastafari came about, all we had was the Bible. And we tried our best to blacken it up. We tried
Yes.
our best to Africanize
Yes.
this Christianity. But there's the internet, there's the scholars, there's the new information coming through. So what are we to do? Turn our back against the information?
So what
That's the
about
axiom.
Sorry,
Sorry?
I don't mean to cut your wisdom, but what
That's
about
okay.
the part where someone would say to you, Christianity came from out of Ethiopia? I hear that a
Christianity?
lot.
No, Christianity didn't come from Ethiopia.
Ethiopia has
There's
this version of the Bible. It has the 88 books, and it's complete. It's not missing. It doesn't have the missing books like the King James version. What else? Yeah, that's the oldest version. You know, Selassie even said that in one of his speeches and things like that.
Well, you see, the thing about Ethiopia is that
Like these are things that people have carried in their hearts for years and years.
yes,
just
yes,
because
yes.
And because they read that part of Selassie saying that, you can't tell them anything different.
Yeah. Because the thing about Ethiopia is shrouded in myth, a lot of myth. Ethiopians don't even know their history. Ethiopia knows tradition. They don't know their history. Most of them don't know their history. They know Ethiopian tradition.
Exactly.
Ethiopia, I remember reading in my days coming up as a young Ras. That was 1997, 1996. Around that time, I used to dabble in a lot of books related to the Judaic mythos, books of Moses, lost books of the Bible, the book of Eden. I read a lot of these books.
Mm-hmm.
And these books have a way of being depersonalized. You cannot see yourself in it because it's so fantastic, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And they said Solomon, although he had 1,000 wives, he had only 3 children. I think it's Adrami, Rehoboam, and Menelik. And these 3 children, the world belonged to those 3 children. Adrami went on to become the king of Rome.
Mm-hmm.
Menelik, the king of Ethiopia, and Rehoboam, the king of Israel.
Mm-hmm.
So, as you can see, this is pure myth. Pure myth. This coming from to the Keber Negast.
Yes.
The Keber Negast says Christians cannot be slaves. Why didn't it say Africans cannot be slaves?
Yeah, but that's not even true because it was Christianity that was one of the forefronters in slavery. The good ship Jesus of Lobach, okay?
Yes. You know, yeah, but that came.
Cuba, you know what I mean?
But that came later on. That came later on when Britain entered the slave trade. You know, because
right, but
the
it was
person.
still orchestrated by Christian people.
Yes, that's
You
true.
know what I mean?
That's true. Yes, but they were because the history of slavery, it's not a simple history, because
And so many hands were in it, from the Arabs
yeah,
to the
from
Spanish.
1415 with the capture of Ceuta by the Portuguese, because the Portuguese were the first on the scene, you know? And they them and Spain were in a competition, you know.
Mhm.
And while Christopher Columbus, because both of them were trying to escape the Muslims had already control of the spice trade, the sea routes, you know, the trade routes. Sorry,
Right. The east side of Africa.
yes,
Yeah. Yeah.
and you had the people of Venice. They
Mhm.
were they were Europeans, but they didn't care about religion. They were trading slaves.
They
You
just
know,
want
they
the
would,
money. Yeah.
yeah, they
The
were trading
business there.
slaves, and they were not. They didn't have land. It was the Portuguese and the French and the Spanish. They had land, and they oppressed their people. You know,
Hmm.
they wanted all the land, and they had the serfs. But in Venice, they didn't have land. If you look at Venice, they're a city on water. You know, but they were merchants,
Right.
and they were dealing in that Arab slave trade.
Hmm.
Them and those from the north, the Nordic people. You know? And then you have Christopher Columbus trying to escape them and saying he can sail to the west and get to India. Actually, Cristobal Colon and his brother, I think is Bartholomew, one went to England and Christopher Columbus went to the Portuguese. They were denied, and then they went to Spain, and Spain said okay, and they set sail. But he he sailed the Santa Maria, and the Pizon brothers, who were actually, they were like Moors. They were from a dynasty of Moors,
Hmm.
a black dynasty of Muslims, and they were sailing the Pinta and the Nina, and Christopher Columbus was sailing the Santa Maria, and his navigator was Pedronino. But he his ship was shipwrecked, and he was saved by, I think it was um, Fernando. It was two of them. I think it was Vincent and Fernando Pizon. But they ended up coming to the west, and Bartholomew Diaz ended up sailing around Africa, trying to go to India by sailing around Africa because the Pope had already divided the world in two. You know, give Spain a piece, give Portugal a piece, and the Portuguese. Well, after Diaz finally made his way to the southern tip of Africa, he didn't do much after that. He returned, but then they sent Vasco da Gama, and Vasco da Gama now came with all the cannons to cause hell on the Swahili coast, and that's where he disrupted the slave of the Africans on the east coast. A lot of slavery, killed people in India, set up his factories in India, disrupted the whole trade that was going on there in the Red Sea, and the Portuguese were looking for the Ethiopian emperor, the Christian king who they called Prester John, to help them against the Muslims because they knew of that Christian kingdom from since the days of Aksum. Aksum and Rome were like brothers. But after Rome fell, because of the Vandals and the different hordes that came down from higher north in Europe, in Eurasia, Rome fell, and so than did Aksum. So they were looking for Prester John to help them with to control the trade in the Red Sea, the trade of the spices, the ivory, the slaves, the gold, and they sent two guys, Kovila, and they had another one, but that other one died. But Kovila finally made it to Ethiopia, to Abyssinia at the time, and he met the so-called Prester John. I think it was Constantinos, or because Constantinos is just another form of Constantine,
Right.
because they were mimicking Rome, the Romans. They were
So that's
mimicking.
Constantine from Constantinople.
Yeah, so the emperor's name was Constantinos, or a name like that, because that's what they did. They just took these foreign names and got rid of their indigenous names. Just like in the Congo, you had Alfonso. You know? So then he found Prester John, and this Ethiopian king was facing a struggle with Grang the Left-Handed. Grang the Left-Handed almost conquered the entire Abyssinia and made it become totally a Muslim country.
Okay.
And if it wasn't for the Portuguese, Christianity wouldn't have survived. So this is the complex history of Ethiopia. So when we align with Ethiopia and we don't know the complex history, how it became a Christian nation, because of Frumentius and the 9 saints. None of these saints were from Africa. Frumentius wasn't an African.
Exactly.
Some races say Christ was born in a cave in Ethiopia. But no, the Christ born in a cave in Ethiopia had to do with the sun. That was one of the sayings for the sun in winter. The sun is in its cave. That had nothing to do with, because even His Majesty said Christianity came from outside. That's why he left Ethiopia and went to Jerusalem to see where Christ dwelt. So we keep on confusing ourselves with that Christian thing, but Christianity started in Alexandria.
So how come they missed that part?
Because they don't
How are
know.
they missing that part?
They don't know. It's a foggy part of history. When it comes to the beginning of Christianity, the Serapis, the edicts of Theodosius and Justinian, that's the only way Christianity could have spread, by them trying to destroy the indigenous spiritual system of the Nile Valley. That's what the Coptics did. Remember, the Coptics are the ones who actually gave to Ethiopia their orthodoxy. It was the Coptics. That's why the Coptics chose their priests until His Majesty made the Tewahedo, the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, autonomous. And these Copts fought against the original spiritual system. And the Nubians still practice this ancient system. And they journeyed to the temple of Philae on the island of Philae. And it was not until Justinian passed his edict that they closed this temple, and that was the end, the beginning of the end. But the Nubians, or the people of the Seti, still practiced that ancient spiritual system. When the Greeks came, they conquered Kemet, but they couldn't conquer Seti because of a queen named Sekhmak. A lot of people know about Amenoraenus, who fought the Romans. But before Amenoraenus, there was Sekhmak that fought against the Greeks. And after many centuries, the Christians finally conquered Ta-Nehisi or Taseti through Izana. Izana destroyed the last stronghold of the pharaonic culture, the Ethiopian king Izana.
Right.
But I shouldn't say Ethiopian. I should say Aksumite. Because it was only much later that they took on the name Ethiopia. But Ethiopia had to do with the Sudan. The Kandakes, Sudan. The Kandakes were not in Abyssinia. Even the story of Philip baptizing the Enoch from the court of Candace. It's not Candace, it's Kandake. And that was supposed to have happened in the first century. But in the first century, Nubia was far from being a Christian nation. That happened, I think, all the way in the 4th or 5th century.
So that's like 500 years after.
After. And they held on to Christianity for quite some time until the Muslims came in. So it was one Abrahamic faith after the other,
Right.
conquering our traditionalists. And a lot of them fled. They fled and they formed ancient Ghana. So we can see this continuation. So we as Rastafari people who are seeking the truth, we're not just there to just worship and not evolve with the information. Because when we began this journey of self-rediscovery, it was to go back to our origins and our roots. It was not to deny ourselves of our heritage. That's what happened. That's what is happening right now. The faith of Haile Selassie becomes a cataract in our flowing to our source. The divinity of His Majesty, that's the next thing too. When we talk about divinity, when we say His Majesty is divine, what are we really saying? Did He never make any mistakes?
Of course he.
All human beings are imperfect. His Majesty Himself said that. There is no perfection in nature. No one has mastered any craft, because there's always room for improvement. This is nature. Nature keeps on improving and improving and improving and improving. What many of us know today, Haile Selassie never knew. Haile Selassie didn't have the internet. Haile Selassie didn't have days and nights and weekends and vacations to just sit and read. He had a lot on his shoulders. So we try to chop down the humanity of Haile Selassie I to turn him into the creature of the Bible. A creature that could have saved, but wouldn't. Haile Selassie could have stopped the bombs from raining on Ethiopia, but he chose not to. This is where we find ourselves, in that obscure space that His Majesty turns to that bigoted creature of the Judeo-Christian myths, Yahweh. And a lot of races, they are dumbfounded because they're not armed with their history. My teacher, who recently departed,
Is that Abdul?
yes, Abdullah, King
Okay.
Abdullah.
See, I was thinking it was the dark skinned brother.
I'm trying to remember this dark skinned brother you're talking about.
Okay, remember when we had Professor Smalls on
Yes,
and he came on the line for a few minutes?
I think it was him. I think it was
Yeah.
him.
But the one that you have on your Facebook page that says Abdul,
Yeah,
rest in peace,
That-
Abdul. He wasn't on the live when Professor
he
Smalls
wasn't
came.
there. I wonder
It's
who
the
it
other
was.
one.
I wonder who it was. I'll have to go back and,
And then,
and
okay,
look.
remember when Ross Ben came on and he was asking about
Yes,
the PowerPoint slides or whatever that Ross Ben
Yes.
was presenting?
yes,
That's not
yes,
Abdul.
yes. Oh, I think that was a younger gentleman. That was a younger guy.
Yeah, he's
Yeah,
older
that was
than
a
you
younger
and I.
chap.
Mm-hmm.
Ah, I'll
But
have
you
to
did-
go back and
but
watch that.
You said he was one of your teachers as well.
I'll have to go and look at that one again
Okay.
to try to recollect that.
Because he came on the live real briefly when Professor Smalls was on. And he was listening to the podcast when Ross Ben came on.
Yeah, well, when I was a young man, young Ras, very
But he's
biblical.
still living, right? This one that I'm speaking of, he's still
Yes,
living.
yes, I think so.
When you said that your teacher recently transitioned, I thought it was him.
No,
And then I saw on your Facebook wall,
yes,
you said "Rest in peace, Abdul," and I'm like, okay, this
Yes.
was someone else. Then.
yes. Abdullah was one of the most intellectual races on my island.
Okay.
He read a lot. When I was just a young Ras, I remember passing in the ghetto and hearing this man saying there were people before Adam and Eve. And I was like, what the hell is that man talking about?
It had to be. Think about it.
No, but at that time, I was very biblical. The Bible was the source
Of
of
life.
history.
Mhm.
There was no history greater than the Bible.
Oh wow.
There was no history greater than the Bible. So when I heard him saying that, I was like, I was maybe around 17.
Okay.
I was like, what? What's he talking about? And then I got to know who he was. He's my cousin. And so
Your
we got
blood
close. Yeah, my blood cousin.
Mhm.
So we got close. And I used to go up to check him in the hills and bring a little offering of ganja. And I used to sit in, like a baby. And he used to, when I reached in his house, when I looked around his ceiling, the parameter of the ceiling was just cassettes. Because that time it was cassettes.
Yeah. And
Cassettes
DVDs.
and DVDs. Cassettes. And he had this book of DVDs, this thick book of DVDs. And he had books. So I said, I'm gonna plant my roots here. And it was from then until this time, we've been at it. We've been collecting books, we've been exchanging information, and his eyesight wasn't as good as mine. So I was the one now doing most of the reading, and everything I read, I would call him up and said, okay, I purchased this book and this is what I found in it. and we would discuss and discuss and discuss and discuss, you know,
Mhm.
and we created the White Lotus Temple, and we started publishing,
Okay.
doing carvings, dealing with crystals and stones, and we had this Masonic brother, and Masonry was part of it all,
Mhm.
and so we went very, very deep, very deep. A lot of the races on the island, they were like
Couldn't handle it.
so, yeah, they're like so far behind where Abdullah took the knowledge, you know,
Mhm.
and he passed, but before he passed, he left me with instructions to try to raise Rastafari out of its Eurocentricity and
For
bring
real.
it back to its African foundation, which was really the Kumina.
True.
The Kumina was the foundation because when you talk about the Maroons, when you talk about
Okay.
the Maroons, you talk about the African revival. Christianity isn't there yet. When you talk about the Jonkunu, the um, the Kumina, the Pokomania, when you talk about these, because it was all beginning, because everything starts out, concentrate, and then just like when you making some juice, it starts concentrate, and then you start adding water.
Diluted. Yeah, it starts watering down. Right.
Yes, and it
Till it
becomes
doesn't even
diluted.
taste like the original anymore. It tastes like
That's
something
what happened.
else.
That's what happened to Rastafari.
Mhm.
It became diluted. So when I asked the elders, "What's a bongo man?" They said it's a man with some big dread, bongo dread. I said, "Nah, that's not the meaning of bongo man. A, the bongo man comes from the Kumina. The bongo man is the man that deals with the spiritual realm of the ancestors and brings the knowledge to the physical world to his people. That's what the bongo man is.
Had nothing to do with his hair.
Nothing to do with hair.
Hmm.
That's the meaning of bongo man. When we say Congo man, that has to do with the Congo. When we say marijuana, marijuana was used in the Kumina. It was used in the Kumina to contact the ancestral spirits, the spirits of revolution. It had nothing to do with Indians bringing marijuana to us.
And the chalice.
Yeah. So a lot of these concepts is because of amnesia. A lot of it is because of our amnesia, which we did not choose and we did not willingly forget. It was beaten out of us. So we had to borrow. But we borrowed. Of course, when you borrow, you have to give back.
Right.
But we borrowed and we kept it. So much we kept it, we said that we created it. So we became parasites. We became shadows, mimics, sitting on the bleachers in life. And that is where we are. In a whole of Mount Zion. There's no Mount Zion in Africa.
Wait, hold that thought because someone in the chat just posted a comment from the Rasta
Olodumare,
Foundation of
Ododowa,
the Sun 13.
yes, Obatala, Ori, Kadamawi, Haile Selassie is divine king to bring balance in family. Osa, Orion, Leon Noel, Cain, Enoch, Merkaba, 13, Tetragrammaton, Epod, Rastafari. Oh, well, that's what you call syncretism. You take everything and you make a soup. You make a soup. But we're not interested in a soup. We're interested in the original thing. That's what we're interested in, the origin. We're not into a soup. Because a lot of it is Judaic myth mixed up with our original thing. Where did Judaic myth took it from? Because remember what the Judaic myth comes with. The oppression of the feminine.
Most definitely.
So we're not into making a soup. We're into our own thing. Because a lot of people throw these words together. Jumble up. They jumble up all them things together. That's why Diop said, if we're serious about learning our African roots, we must go to Kemet.
Exactly.
And in Kemet, you have 42 gnomes, many of them with different deities coming together. Our first instance of African unity in Kemet. When the European came into Kemet, or I should say the Eurasian, because Europe is not a continent. When the Eurasian came into Kemet, the first time they saw a national deity, their deities were in villages. They had no unity. Read the book. Read Diop's works. Diop is one of the greatest minds that Africa has produced. Read his literature. So we don't want to just be howling in the wind. When we talk, we must make sense of what we're saying. We must do the work and do the research. Rasta, the first instance of Rasta comes from Kemet. Rasta or Rastao, which is the gate to the doorway of enlightenment, which was the Giza Plateau, the place of initiation, our sacred place. Not Jerusalem, not Mount Zion. Roll, River Jordan, roll. River Jordan is not in Africa. You see, because we don't read, we don't study, we grab onto, because there are two kinds of people, the seekers and the finders. Those who seek and those who just deal with what they find. And a lot of races.
And then they just regurgitate it like they found it, you know?
Yes, regurgitating. That's Eurocentric pedagogy of knowledge. To regurgitate. We're not into regurgitation. Knowledge is there to have a shift in consciousness. Knowledge is there that you become the evidence of that knowledge. It's not just about information, it's about inspiration. So you become the light. We are not mimics and followers. We are the originals. We are not shadows. We have the River Nile. What are we saying, River Jordan? We have Mount Rwenzori. We have Kilimanjaro.
They just skip over all of the ancient rivers
and they go to Mount Zion.
The modern ones.
Yes, because of the Bible. It's just like colonialism. They taught us about their ancestors, their food, their places, and they didn't even teach us about the trees that grew around us. They didn't even teach us about the herbs we walked on that would heal us on our way to the doctors to take the chemicals.
Right. Right. That
That's
part.
what colonization did.
That's growing right in our backyard, right in our front yard, right in our neighbor's yard.
Yes, it took us so far away from ourselves. Then they talk about New Jerusalem built in Ethiopia. Sounds just like New Spain and New England.
Hmm. New Jersey, New York, New Hampshire.
So,
Yeah.
so we keep on taking things from the outside, but we have so much richness within. That's what Leopold told the missionaries. Don't tell them about don't take each other's wife. Don't tell them about they shouldn't steal. They know that already, better than us. Teach them. Slaves, obey your masters.
I know.
Teach them.
That's
It
ridiculous.
is it is it is easier for a camel to enter the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter heaven. Heaven with streets of gold and crystal cities. From where?
And the
Our
pearly
gold, the pagans' gold. So I know sometimes I might come down heavy, but I
No, you
have
have
to.
to. Yeah, you got to bring the pain like that.
I have to.
We're in a time where it's about knowing,
Yeah.
and you know better, so you're doing better by trying to share that knowing. And who can hear, will hear. Who can see, will see it.
The most the youths the youths will gravitate to the knowledge better
Oh
than the
yeah,
elders.
they're more
Yeah,
receptive all the time,
better than
whatever
the
it is.
elders.
Exactly.
Because the youths know real talk.
Hmm.
Yeah, the youths know real talk. But when you come with the Abraham thing, the Adam and Eve thing, Adam and Eve is 6,000 years ago.
And see, the youth will question that, and the elders will tell them don't question it because they themselves,
Yeah,
like you said, don't have the answer. Or they would just regurgitate what was told to them 30, 40 years ago. But the
yes,
youth will question it, go research it, and then come
yeah,
back and say, no, we need to reprove
yes,
this. This is not the truth. And
right,
then they get shunned, you know?
yeah. We attempt to make His Majesty so great, so great. But actually, we're making Him so weak. Because your
We missing our
greatness,
own greatness. We don't even see it in ourselves because we're too busy trying to see it in him.
precisely, because His greatness had to do with His effort, it had to do with His persistence, it had to do with His work, it had to do with His reading.
Hmm.
It wasn't like Jesus Christ, the man that could not sin, the man who wasn't even born of sperm. There wasn't conception through sex for 3 generations. From Hannah, Mary's mother. Mary wasn't born. Mary wasn't born through conception, you know. Jesus wasn't born through conception neither. And Jesus, so what they said, he didn't have any children. So there wasn't conception through sex for 3 generations.
But then they have some text that says Jesus was married and he had a daughter.
Well,
And if he had a daughter, that means he was having sex.
Well, you see,
I'm just saying.
many stories, many stories. There are many stories surrounding this man they call Yeshu. There are two. There's Jesus and there's Yeshu. Jesus is supposed to be an anthropomorphical figure related to the sun, the 12 disciples, the 12 constellations on the zodiac belt. Yeshu was hung on a tree for sorcery, along with his 5 disciples. One is
Not 12.
one is historical, the next one is astrotheological. We follow the astrotheological because we don't know the history. Research it in the Sanhedrin 43a, the story of Yeshu. But we don't read. That's our biggest problems as Rastafari, because we rely on divine inspiration, not knowledge. When we are the ones to be seeking for the knowledge, beating the books, burning the midnight oil, researching, reading the works of our ancestors. You cannot say you love your ancestors and you don't read their works.
Yeah,
And we are the ones to bring it. Yeah, we are the ones to bring it to the children, to bring it to the people. Not because you're eating ital, your locks long to the ground. All this is illusion. All this is superstition. His Majesty never smoked weed. His Majesty wasn't a vegetarian. His Majesty never have locks. His Majesty was a Christian.
Total opposite, exactly. There's another comment in the chat as well. From the same brother.
And most truly, African traditional spirituality is the key and roots. Yes, African spirituality is the roots of it all.
But Rasta don't want to deal with African spirituality because it's being, looked upon as devil worship.
Yes, because
as evil.
They have aligned with the Abrahamic faith. The Abrahamic faith. And so when you deal with nature, because remember, this Jehovah, this Yahweh, wasn't a part of nature. Our divinity rose from the waters of noon, where we came from. That's why we call the divine our first ancestor.
Mm-hmm.
God is apart from nature. This Jehovah, this Yahweh is apart from nature. He hovered above the waters. He didn't come out of it.
Like how the top plunged out of the waters of noon.
Yes. Because we had a lot of our myths, but our myths came from nature. Our myth came from studying nature. Amun, Amunet. Nun, Nunet. These just represent the concepts of the womb, the darkness of the womb, the wetness of the womb. This is where our creation stories come from. What we saw in nature, what we studied in nature. That's why we told the foreigners when they came in, y'all building a house for the divine. How can the divine fit in a house? So they had a different way of seeing the divine. It was different. in the African philosophy, what we call the divine or they call God does not take part in human affairs. You really think that a divinity who created the millions of galaxies has time to study if you're praying on a Sunday or a Saturday?
I know.
What we dealt with were the principles of the universe and the ancestors. That's what we dealt with. They were the mediators to that divinity. Most African cultures do not pray to God, do not pray to the divine. They pray to the ancestors. Osiris, an ancestor. That's why we had ancestral cults, deification of people that lived before us. Imhotep was deified. Amenhotep, son of Apu, deified. Ptahhotep, deified. We now deify Haile Selassie I. But we never confuse that with these persons being Amen or Amun.
Even Prince Emmanuel is being deified.
Yes, deified Prince Emmanuel. But the Amun means the concealed, the hidden one. Unfathomable. It is the European that claim they know, and they even know his name. We didn't even put a gender. We had two genders. So if we said Amun, we said Amunet.
To bring in the balance.
Yes, if we say Osa, we say Oset. If we say Ptah, we say Sekhmet and the son Nefertun. Divinities came from a family. This Yahweh has no family. He's a rogue. So the further we go in our history, the more power we attain. And when we speak, the world trembles. This morning, I went on a radio show with the same president of ICA because we have an exhibition tomorrow and we're going to do some lectures. And this man on the radio show, he was asking questions, and we ended up speaking about how the map of the world is actually upside down. And the true perspective, the original perspective of the world is Africa at the top. Because the longest river in the world runs from the highlands of Ethiopia, Uganda, and comes down to the River Nile. And comes down to the Mediterranean. And the first accurate map drawn using 70 maps was the one done by Muhammad al-Idrisi in the 12th century. And it had Africa at the top. But then they turned it around for the Westerners, for the Europeans. And the Europeans put themselves at the top of the world. the southern cradle, which gave civilization, which actually started civilization. The Babylonians, the Canaanites, the Phoenicians, the Kemetiu, the Kashites had civilization. Europe never had civilization. The Jews didn't have civilization. What did the Jews have before they came into Kemet in their story? Nothing. They came into civilization.
Mm-hmm.
And when they left with a little knowledge. And with that little knowledge, they built their spiritual system. And that spiritual system was only a tool to conquer the civilized world. This is why the God of Yahweh, the God called Yahweh, is a deity of barrenness and spoliation. What is spoliation? Spoliation means to take people thing to build your own thing. Colonization. That's what colonization was about. To take people thing to build their own thing.
Mm-hmm.
So
Krishna Selassie has a comment in the chat as well.
His Majesty said himself, my dynasty goes beyond Solomon, and Ethiopia or Kush is older than Kemet. Those alone tells me that we as Rasta should go farther than the Bible and the Abraham faith. Most definitely. Now, here's something to think about. 4 rivers come from the Garden of Eden. Pishon, Euphrates, Gihon, and the Tigris. If these 4 rivers come from the Garden of Eden, that means they have the same source.
Exactly. Coming from the same.
Where does the Nile meet the Euphrates?
And you see, this is another Bible argument.
Now,
this very thing you're saying right now is another Bible argument. They don't even want to hear anything about it now being included in that or being the root to those 4 rivers.
Now, there is Cash, later on translated to Kush, but it's really Cash. If you read the Medunetra, you'll see it was Cash.
Mm-hmm.
There was a place in Mesopotamia, one of the earliest cities, called Kish. So could it be Gihon is a river in Kish and not Kush?
So
Then it would make
Cash,
then it would make sense that all these 4 rivers are in Mesopotamia. You mute. Okay, you came back. So you see.
Yeah, I just had to answer the call real quick, and I didn't want to talk while you're talking.
Okay. So definitely, we have to go before Abraham. I always say that the patriarchy in the Bible comes from the Greeks. In the book of Maspero, a history of Egypt from 330 to the present. In there, you see the story of the Jews. The Jews were bought out of slavery from the coffers of Kemet by Philadelphus. Philadelphus was the son of Soter, the general of Alexander the Greek.
Mm-hmm.
And they were given a nice piece of land by the sea, while the natives of Kemet were chased to the south. Josephus said that the Hyksos were the Jews. The Jews were not African people. It is said that on the writing of the Septuagint, a Platonist was at the table. So a lot of Greek thought went into the Bible. Even the word Hebrew is a Greek word.
Are you sure about that? Because you'll get a lot of pushback saying that right there. That's a serious
Well,
statement
you can
you just
research
made,
it.
my brother.
You can research it.
Serious.
Even the word Hebrew
No,
is a
I'm
Greek word.
feeling you. But there's ones that can hear that, and it'll be a serious debate. A serious debate.
Well, like I said, I've been I've been studying my history and world history for 3 decades, for almost 3 decades. So I have read a lot. And not only read a lot, I have reasoned a lot. Because reasoning is very good because you get to experience different point of views and you get to be sharper and sharper.
Yeah.
So they can go and look it up and they can go and do the work and study. Pallades, one of the great poets of the Greeks, said, "A married man has only 2 happy days. The day he takes his bride to bed, and the day he lays her in her grave."
Wow.
Solon, the lawmaker, had to pass laws for Greeks to get married because the men were into pederasty, the love of boys.
Boy, yes.
Plato said the most virtuous of love is the love between a man and a young boy. The patriarchy comes from the Greeks. It comes from the northern cradle, which the oldest form of misogyny in the world comes from the Iliad and the Odyssey, where a young boy tells his mother, "Mom, conversation is for men. Go to your room." All this comes into Bible where women are called the bringer of sin into the world. In our system, it is Osset that gives life to the man.
But she has to go to her room.
Os- Osar is killed by his brother, and Osset brings him back to life.
That part.
So,
And how she did it was so miraculous that she
yes,
transformed into a bird,
yes,
flapped her wings,
right, of course,
and got impregnated.
of course. Because the woman was feared by the Eurasian because of her power, her seductive power.
They get a lot of
Chinwe's,
brethren caught up, huh?
yeah, Chinwe's book, Anatomy, Female Anatomy of Power, where men are actually slaves for women. A woman can make a man do what she wills. Men on themselves can live. A man can live in a cardboard box for all he cares. But for the love of a woman, to impress a woman, he'll go all out. power of the divine feminine.
Exactly.
This is what the Eurasian fears the most. And he had to subdue that power. But we, as an African people, the woman was the throne, and the man was the eye, the watchman protecting the throne. That's why Osiris depicted a throne and an eye. And the woman, Oset, is the throne.
Exactly.
Because in our Medu nature, we have the first instance of abstract thought. And we made it come alive. We put it in stone. Europeans didn't have abstract thought. If you look at their sculptures, really lifelike. Rarely lifelike sculptures. Mimics, they mimic nature. But us, abstract, that's what you call synchronism. Not mixing up all these different religions together. Abstract thinking, synchronism. That's where the Freemasons get the concept of pi, squaring the circle, fitting the square into a circle, fitting the material world into the infinity of the cosmos.
Thinking outside of linear time.
Yes.
Thinking more, thinking more circular, so to speak.
Yes, because the circle represents the Nehen, eternity, the Ouroboros, no beginning and no end. Yeah? The square represents the 490-degree angles, which represents the physical world, the material world. So these concepts, now held in the Masonic orders, came from us. The greatest history in the world, the greatest mystery, the biggest secret is African, the African story. The African story is the greatest mystery in the world. So when you get your African story, no doubt about it, you'll become powerful. Because the African story has not to do with regurgitation. It has to do with a shift of consciousness and you becoming the evidence of this knowledge. That's why you must wear your colors. No more living in the world of gray.
Although we have 50 shades of gray.
No more dressing in t-shirt and jeans. That's a prison uniform. We wore our fabrics with our different designs related to the cosmos, having deep expression. Our whole life had to do with spirit. We're on the inside looking out. They're on the outside looking in.
Exactly.
We are spiritual. We are a spiritual people, or we are spirituality, trying to adapt to a material world. For them, they are materialists, trying to find out what is spirit. So this is what we see playing out in the Bible.
Mhm.
If you read the Bible, there's no talk about the afterlife. There's only talk about generation after generation, generations, generations of men. But we had concepts of the afterlife, of the Duat.
Oh yeah, and prepared for it too,
Yes.
without a doubt,
20,
without any shame.
20 years to build a tomb, 20 years to build our pyramid. Because we didn't fear death. Death was only a part of life. The opposite of life, there is no opposite of life. The opposite of death is birth, which are both part of life. So the European or the Eurasian, Diop categorizes Caucasians as Europeans, Indians, Chinese, Arabs. All of these are Caucasians.
Hold your wisdom for 1 second. We have another question in the chat from Kushite Philosophy.
Not to be the child in the room, but did they really forget to put Osa penis back on? Well, that's a story. That's a story. That a great man is a great man even without a penis. A great man is a great man even without a penis. Think about that. And a woman would love you even without a penis. The European has de-evolved the world. We should be at a higher level, at a higher frequency by now. But the European has brought in materialism and lowered the vibration of the planet. So right now, we're worshiping instead of becoming.
Well, you see, that was the mindset that Set was on.
Mhm. Yes,
Because he made sure he threw the penis in the water so the catfish could eat it.
yes,
Not only did he break up the body into 12 or 13 or 14 pieces, because there's so many different versions of how many pieces the body was broken up into, but he made it his business to make sure that that penis won't be found.
right.
Because remember, I said she searched high and low, to and fro, left and right, up and down, back to the
Mhm.
center, and couldn't find it.
Yes,
So he knew what he was doing when he did that, but that didn't stop Heru from
Mhm.
being born. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? She still was
Yes.
able to
Mhm.
resurrect his, reincarnate his spirit. You know?
Mhm. It's also a story about us. It's also a story about us
Why do you say
that
that?
we have been fragmented into many pieces.
Oh yeah.
Right now, each piece claiming to be a whole by itself.
Mm-hmm.
And we were put into that wooden box. The slave ships on the waters. And you're an American I'm a Saint Lucian. He's a Bajan. He's a Vincentian.
Right.
And each of us thinking that we're a whole unto ourselves
Yeah.
when we are just fragments.
Mhm. But the other nations look at us as one. Whole.
Of course.
We're the only ones that see ourselves fragmented and different and separate and lesser or higher, you know.
Mm. Yes, because it's a reflection of our inner fragmentation, our schizophrenia,
Mm-hmm.
because all of us wear masks. The only time we become ourselves is when we go amongst the grassroots. But we have to speak different and act different in the corporate world. We have to put on our masks. That's what that's what happened to black people. We can't be ourselves. We become schizophrenics.
And anytime someone tries to bring the pieces together, you always get shot down. They don't want to come together. They like to be scattered.
Yeah. Because,
They lack in the
because
wisdom and intuition of our set to realize that we need to be whole.
definitely. It has to do with individualism. The fragmentation is individualism,
Mm-hmm.
which the Bible bestowed on us. One man, one vote. Each man for himself and God for us all.
Mm-hmm. You know, it's real special that you just, how you said that fragmented part. Because in the shaman way of healing, they talk about the fragmented soul, where the average person have a fragmented soul throughout time, either as past life or this life that you're living now. You may have had a troubled childhood or a troubled marriage, or something during your lifetime have allowed you to, have missing parts of yourself. And there's a certain healing that you have to go through in order to retrieve those missing soul parts. It's called soul retrieval because you've been so fragmented throughout your lifetime that you need to retrieve those missing parts back. And it said that like 96% of the planet Earth is fragmented.
Of course. Definitely. Yes, that's so true. Yeah, we are fragmented within. In our ancient ontology,
Mm-hmm.
the human being had 9 parts. The wren, the cat, the aku, the kaibit, the sekem. We had 9 parts. The ab, and all these 9 parts had to come together to be a productive human being. But now, we're Africans with European names, fragmentation.
Mm-hmm.
So we now have to put ourselves back together again. Remember. We have to remember.
And that's the Willie Lynch syndrome too. To like bring it more in a modern time understanding. It's the Willie Lynch syndrome.
Yeah, it's the really
Traumatic slave trade syndrome.
yes, divide and rule. Not only to divide you from other people, but you yourself
Yourself. Yes.
would be divided and fragmented.
Because there's no way we're looking at Haile Selassie as divine and Rasta being the highest and all these different branches is so divided. There's no way. That's a fragment right there.
Yes, definitely. But that's because we take a foreign doctrine and we try to use it in an African paradigm. His Majesty self said, we use foreign religion, and try to apply it to African people. That's why in Ethiopia, they Africanized Christianity, because they spent 1,000 years isolated, 1,000 years in isolation. That's why their Christianity is a different kind of Christianity. But it's still something that was borrowed that we have to return. When you borrow something, you have to return it, especially when you found your own. So if we found our own, give back what we've borrowed. Give them back their names, give them back their clothes. We found our vocation. But many have drunk of the old wine, and they cannot adapt. Unfortunately, they cannot adapt to the new. And that's what we see happening, especially amongst the elders. Like I was reasoning with an elder. I asked him,
they're supposed to be the way. They're supposed to be the counselors, and we can't even get counsel from them.
Nah.
Because they'll lead you down that old devil's pole.
Yeah. I asked the elder, where is Mount Zion? He said, Mount Zion is in your heart. I said, in your heart? I tell him, but Mount Zion is in Israel. He said, no, Mount Zion is in Ethiopia, New Jerusalem. So I watched him.
So what's the old Jerusalem? Where's the root of it?
Yeah,
I
because
don't want to just deal with the new. Bring me to the roots, where it started.
Yeah, well, the roots will take you to Israel. The first mention of Israel is on the Merneptah stela, and on that stela it says that Israel is an enemy of the black people. An enemy of black people. And it said they destroyed them, the last seed of them. So when I say black people, I mean the Kemetiu.
Yes.
And Kemetiu means black people. Africa is a word coming from the Afri people, which was just on a little strip of land on the Mediterranean, on the coast of the Mediterranean, which the Romans took and they called the whole continent Africa. But if you look for a name, it's the Kemet, the black land, or the land of black people, or the black nation. That's why the Egyptologists, who were set up to prevent Africans from knowing the truth. That's why Egyptology was set up. Because before, everyone knew that Kemet was an African civilization. Everyone knew that. It was not until the decipherment of the Rosetta Stone that other people began to claim Kemet. Because there was so much information, so much papyri on maths, the Rhine papyri, on medicine, so many documentation, so much documentation. Kemet has more documentation than anywhere else in the world.
Yeah, because at one point, Kemet was the place to go, the place to be for
Yes,
the
yes,
knowledge, for the wisdom,
of
for the
course.
trade, for the commerce, you know?
Right. The Ipet Isut was the grand university of the world,
Mhm.
which they call Karnak. That was the
Right.
grand university that spread information all over the world.
Mhm.
But if you don't know those things, you'll always you'll always cleave to what you know. And that's your circle, your knowledge. That's you cannot go outside that. So we need to expand our circle. We need to broaden our knowledge base. Because that's what Rastafari means. Rasta.
It will be hard for Rastafari to do that because the Bible speaks about Egypt as being so despicable.
Yeah. Because they
You
say
understand?
the Israelites came into Egypt, where they were enslaved.
Exactly.
The Europeans were once branded in Kemet when they were captured as prisoners of wars. They were enslaved. The Europeans were enslaved by the Kemetir. There was a time when the European, the Urugu, was killed on sight, the redhead one, because there was a time when there were different kinds of humans
Hmm.
on the earth. They had the Grimaldi, it's the African. They had the Neanderthal. They had the Cro-Magnon. The rise of the Cro-Magnon was the end of the Neanderthal. It's in their DNA to destroy, to be anti-nature. In Ethiopia, I put up a post where in Ethiopia, the races will come into Ethiopia looking for redemption. And Ethiopians were taken aback that the Rasta men will come in with white Rasta women.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So if you're trying to escape European oppression and ideology and white supremacy, how are you coming to Ethiopia with a white woman on your arm?
Because Basta is love. While Molly
Yeah,
was half white. You know, my Molly father was white. And, you know, they'll find every excuse to say that that is Rasta.
yeah, because even in St. Lucia, we have races, especially the Bobo. The Bobo will align with anybody for $1.
What?
A lot of them.
What you saying?
A lot of them.
The straight truth.
Yes, a
The
lot of
straight
them
truth.
will align with the European to make $1.
Come like beggars most of the time.
I always say there is such a thing as foolish generosity.
Hmm.
Don't be caught up in generosity.
They pay to
And
get crowned. They pay to get their way in.
yeah,
The price is right, they will do it. But they talk about black supremacy. How
well,
dare you?
you see, the Europe,
I
the
don't
white
understand
Rasta.
the mindset with that. I just don't. And they'll treat them better than their own. I've seen that happen.
Of course, it's the inferiority
Because
complex.
the pocketbook is bigger, and they will treat them better than you.
Well, that's a whole other dimension when we talk about materialism. Materialism in Rastafari.
Yes.
We have to be able to build our own by ourselves. There was a time when there was this Rastaman that was trying to build. I don't know if he succeeded. Have a like a Black Star liner in the Caribbean, because in the Caribbean, I don't think there's any shipping business that would take order or mail from one Caribbean island to the next. They rely on European cargo ships that they would have to go all the way to Miami or wherever and then come back and deliver to the different Caribbean islands.
Right. It would take
Yeah,
weeks.
so
And it should only take a few hours
yes,
or days.
right. So he was trying to build this Black Star liner. So I was listening and it was sounded very interesting. I said, yes, I'm for it. And then he said he would align with white, black, whoever. He was selling shares and he had no problem selling shares to Europeans. So I was like, wait, hold on, hold on. If the Europeans have all the capital, they're going to own this thing.
Exactly. Because they don't take direction from us too
Yeah,
much.
yeah. Because most races are ruled by religiosity, which is intertwined with poverty. That's why the Sabbath falls on the most economical day of the week, when everybody come out to spend their money. That's when the races pray. And Monday they complain about not having any money. I always say, if you tell me the seventh day is the Sabbath, I know that in our origins we have 10 days in a week, not 7.
Mm.
All, all this is foreign, um, endogenous epistemology. All this is foreign to us. These are things that keep us poor. And like my elder Kilimanjaro always said, poverty is our greatest enemy. But the God of the Bible loves the poor and hates the rich. So the indoctrination is deep. It's deep.
And some of them like it like that. They're comfortable, they're content. They don't
Yeah.
see any need, they don't see any room for improvement, they don't see any need to change.
No, they don't see any need for organizations. They
No.
don't see any need for education. It's just righteousness. But who is righteous? Who is righteous? We all make mistakes. We all are imperfect.
Exactly. It's like a big joke when you hear people claim, oh, I know that already. I've been there already. I reached that point already. Those are the ones that I have to laugh at. You just have to sit back and laugh at them. Because only a fool knows everything. So
Precisely.
if you know all of that already, and there's nothing else for you to learn, or you don't want to hear it again because it doesn't concern you, or you don't want it to concern you, you're not as smart as you say you are.
That you have seen and heard so many things among Rastafari people. So much dichotomy. I've seen so much.
And they always find an excuse to include other races, but you can't even love and respect the one that looks like you.
The greatest thing Rastafari people can do is to teach the youth their history. That's the greatest thing we can do.
They don't want to do that because that's going to break the spell that Bible spell that they're under. Because when you start going into history, you know it for yourself. Once you start going into history, that Bible becomes a mystery.
Yeah.
You start slowly but surely chipping yourself away from it because now history is proving something totally different with facts over fiction.
Some races say.
See what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, definitely. Because there's a particular race who said, if you don't know your history, the Bible will be a mystery.
And then when you throw history at them, they can't fathom it. They can't swallow it. They can't accept it. Because why? Because now it is throwing away the Bible. That history that they're finding is going to make them throw away the Bible. And if you want to just keep it just for time's sake, if you want to just keep it just for a souvenir, you can do that, but it's still not going to change the fact that history is history. And you can't move around it. You can't overlook it. You can't find excuses. You can't say but there's no buts. It's none of that.
Yeah, because the Bible is historical fiction.
You know what I'm saying? The truth is absolute. It's there. It's like an algebra problem. Once you solve it, once you look for what is x equals whatever, when you find out what x is and you get your answer, there's no more changing the problem. You can't change the problem anymore because now you have found the answer.
Yes.
You see what I'm saying?
I see exactly what you're saying.
Because they'll say all of that once you know your history. The Bible is a mystery, but yet you're still in that Bible. So what history do you know? Are you admitting that you don't know your history? Too tough, too good, because you're still in the Bible. And I don't want to hear because that's how I grew up, and I don't want to hear, and if that's what I started off with, because now you call yourself evolving and you call yourself learning history now. Then what's the issue? Why are you still holding on to it? Why are you still trying to find excuses? You know what I'm saying? It just gets ridiculous and more ridiculous and more ridiculous. As time goes on, it just sounds more ridiculous. It sounds more boring than anything.
Well, sooner or later they're running out of content. Because with the Bible, with the Abrahamic faith, you can't add and you can't take away. So sooner or later, you'll have nothing to say. But with the African remembering, we haven't even touched. There's so much to explore. So much knowledge is out there. We haven't even begun. But whatever history they find, they use the Bible as a filter.
Mm-hmm.
So if it doesn't align with their Bible, then they disregard it. It must align with the Bible. Or they try to say other things like, okay, well, a man who tapped the food was actually King Solomon. And so they try their best to try.
I accept him because Solomon was this.
Yes.
So, the last thing I saw.
Yeah, they say, well, Osa, so you're trying to tell me Osa prayed to Jesus Christ?
Of course not.
That's what they say. And Haile Selassie is Osa. Now, Osa, to get the title of Osa, you would have to be dead to get that title. Because there was Osa Ani, Osa Wnnefer. These are titles the deceased yet. And they say, Selassie, I never die yet. Although all the pictures we see of Selassie, we see him as a youth, we see him as an adolescent, we see him as an adult, we see him in his frailty as an elder.
Exactly.
So when would the clock stop ticking if he would never leave the physical world? It's best the clock stop ticking when he is in his prime with all his strength. So they say Selassie is still alive and he's somewhere in Ethiopia. His name is Abakidus.
Yeah. Yeah. He walked into the church and never came out.
There's a lot of this, because the superstition is what keeps Rastafari alive in the hearts of the elders. But for the youth aren't gravitating to Rastafari anymore.
They're not.
Because the youth now...
And Africanism is dead, that's why. There's no liberation. You know what I'm saying? There's nothing to unite us and bring us together as a people without including outsiders that's not fighting for our cause, that's not going to their heads of state and speaking on and fighting on our behalf. They just want to be a part of and help. Well, if you really want to help, you will go and bang out this white supremacy system.
Yeah.
If you really want to help.
They say Haile Selassie is a Abrahamic. They say so many different things. For me, the real Abrahamic is Ibrahim Traore. Because Abrahamic was a war deity. And
that brother is showing you how it's supposed to be done.
Yeah, Traore is a soldier.
That's the only country in Africa I'll go to right now at this point.
Yeah.
Right now at this point, because the government is stable, the president is putting back into the country, keeping the resources in the country.
Mm-hmm. Right.
We haven't seen this. We've been waiting for this time for a long time. Mm-hmm. He told the French to pack your bags and go. What? That was a powerful move he made. Rastafari not even making no moves like that.
No, we inviting the Europeans in.
Exactly. While he kicking them out, Rastafari inviting them in. Something's wrong with this picture, brethren. Something is wrong.
Well, we changed the thing in it. You see, Bongo Watu and Bongo Eddie, they changed the thing into a church. The thing was a potent, revolutionary movement. But then, when His Majesty came to Jamaica, and when he sent the Orthodox Church to the Rastas,
that should have showed them something right there.
That began the breaking up of Rastafari into splinter groups, because he sent them in the church.
Spirit was lost at that point.
Yeah, he sent them to church.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
he sent them to church, and a lot of them run from it. A lot of them run. They run from the church. They say no, they're not cutting their locks. They say no, it's not Jesus Christ, it's Haile Selassie. But Haile Selassie said it's Jesus Christ. When they go Ethiopia, and they say we worship Haile Selassie, the people in Ethiopia tell them, but Selassie tell us to worship Jesus.
Yeah.
So now they find themselves in a bind,
Back in church again like they were when they were growing up.
back
Just in a
in the
different form.
Jesus thing again.
Mhm.
You leave it in the West, you expect not to find it in Africa, and there you see in that. There's this woman on YouTube called um, Winnie, Winnie, Ta, Winnie Taferi. I forget her last name, but she did a documentary on slavery in Ethiopia,
Mm.
and she showed the indoctrination of the Amhara,
Send me
and she
that link
showed,
when you get a chance tomorrow.
yeah, she showed me she went through it, and she showed a clip of this young man. It's a black and white clip. I think it was shot in the 1950s, and he is on a panel with different African students and European students from around
Mhm.
the world, and they're asking him about Ethiopia, and he's saying he's not a Negro, he's a Hamite.
Yes, I
You saw
remember.
that?
I remember hearing that.
Yeah,
Yes.
he's a Hamite, and the only reason he's black is because Ethiopia is very high in altitude and they're close to the sun. That's why he's this color, he's brown.
Mhm.
But he has nothing to do with the Negroes, you know?
Mhm. So he see himself as a different race.
Yes. And in that video, she shows he became, I think, the foreign minister of Ethiopia. So, because when I read the selected speeches of Haile Selassie I, the testament, Haile Selassie I says he loved the missionaries for the works they did in Ethiopia. We know what the missionaries did in Africa. He said that the best education he found for his people, the one he favored the most, was the education of the Jesuits.
Yeah, wasn't he initiated into the Jesuits
Well,
rites
well,
of passage or something like that?
well, he was tutored by Jesuit priests when he was young.
Mhm.
So that means that the way they see the world is purely from a biblical level. That's why the youth said he's a Hamite. Ham, Shem, Japheth, they still on this. This is their ontology. This is their sense of being coming from creationism and the, the pedagogy of the Bible. And this was given to all these Ethiopians. Going even back to the Kebronigas, which was actually used to install and legitimize the Amhara dynasty when they got the Zagwe dynasty off the throne. Now, if you watch the foundations of Ethiopia of Aksum, Aksum was created mostly by people from Saudi Arabia. The language Ge'ez came from Saudi Arabia.
Mhm.
That's why I always tell the Rasis Ethiopia is a special place in Africa. Ethiopia survived colonization because of Christianity, because they were colonized with Christianity long time ago, because it was called the white man's burden. The white man's burden was to Christianize the entire world, especially the primitive African. It was Africans who fed the Romans.
So when you say Ethiopia has never been colonized. What do you say about the Italy war crimes?
The war crimes.
Mm.
Well, um,
There's still Italy still have its hand in Eritrea and Ethiopia in a sense.
well,
Right now, today, because you have some
in,
Ethiopians that live in Italy due to the Italy war crimes that happened in the 1930s. So Italy kind of absorbed them in as a what do they call it, refugee or whatever you want to call it. So if it's never
I
been colonized, why we see white Mary, white Jesus in those churches right now today?
I remember reading the book a long time ago by Anthony Mockler. Anthony Mockler wrote a book, Haile Selassie's War. And in that book, it talks about the war, going really into detail.
Mm-hmm.
It talked about the Bloody Saturday. It talked about the assassination on Graziani and how he had his revenge by going up to the monasteries and killing a whole heap of monks, a whole heap of people.
Yeah, he was second level Hitler. He might have
Yeah,
been even worse than Hitler.
yes. So my question is, at that time, where was the Ark of the Covenant? This place that is supposed to be the holiest place on earth, protected by God Himself. How were the Italians able to do that? Go up into the monasteries and kill the monks.
Someone had to orchestrate it.
So, not being colonized, that's not really true. Because they were colonized from the time of Izana through Christianity by Frumentius and Odysseus.
Mm-hmm.
After the king died, the queen had Frumentius tutor Izana, and Izana became a Christian. And he turned on Nubia and conquered the last pharaonic stronghold, the last place where the culture resided. And after that, other priests and monks came in and to Christianize Nubatia, Aloda, and what's the other name? Begins with an M. These three, these three nations in Nubia, in Sudan, Makuria, and that's how they really became Christian. But if you look on the clock, these religions and these Eurasians have only been ruling for 5 minutes. The African ruled for 55 minutes. If you look at an hour on a clock. So they've just recently they've come in and look at the hell they've caused. When Moses went up Mount Sinai and he got the laws, we already had the laws of Ma'at. We already united 42 nomes. We already deified Ptahhotep. So what new that was coming? There was nothing new.
Mm-hmm.
We already had the maxims of Ptahhotep, who was deified. So when you talk about the Old Testament, that's what 1200 BCE to 700 BC, around the same time of the Odyssey and the Iliad by Homer. We're much, much, much older than that. You know? If you check the chronology of the patriarchs of the Bible, you just get 6,000 years to Adam and Eve. 6,000 years, we already had the pyramids.
Exactly. Exactly.
And pre-dynastic times, the first recorded human being, Irihor, the first discovered personage in the world. There is Irihor, meaning the mouth of Heru. And that is the oldest persona we have, proven because they found his tomb. And that's in pre-dynastic times. So we have so much history, so much information. We cannot afford to, like you said, bury our heads in the sand and just keep on quoting Matthew, Luke, John, Peter. These are not even African names.
That's what I'm saying. It's just so played out that after a while, yeah, you know what I'm saying? It gets so played out that after a while, you gotta say to yourself, like, is there anything else I can do now? Because we've done this.
We have Tahotep. We have Kagemni. Many races never even heard these names. When I mention these names, Ipuwer, Kagemni, Tahotep, Amenemope, Ankhshashanke. When I mention these names, the races don't have a clue. But they know Jeremiah, they know Isaac, you know?
You know, Ashraquazi was doing an interview, and it was him and a Rastafari brother.
Mm-hmm.
And Ashraquazi was saying names like you are just now.
Yes.
And breaking down the timelines and comparing and contrasting. And I feel, in my opinion, I feel like the Rastafari brother thought that he was going to come and like really teach Ashraquazi. He was, his mouth was shut the whole time. I have to find that footage because when you observe it and examine the conversation and the dialogue between them two, he really had nothing to bring to the conversation. Ashraquazi was bringing all the fire and all the flames and all the heat.
Yeah, that's the
really
thing.
Examine that conversation and just say, what is he even here for? Like, what did you really think he was going to say to this man? What did you think he was going to say to this man? He's coming with timelines. He's coming with real talk. And all he's come with some Bible stuff. That's all he can bring.
Ashraquazi is the student of Dr. Ben. Dr. Ben, #1 student. You think you can compete with that? How can you compete with that?
I don't even think he ever heard of Dr. Ben.
I remember me and my teacher and I, we used to protect the Rasta's psyche from Dr. Ben. Because there were certain videos, because he introduced me to Dr. Ben as a young teenager. And we had to protect the races, their minds, their sanity from Dr. Ben. When Dr. Ben says things like, highly molasses, and when he calls Haile Selassie a dog, you couldn't play that for the races. If you played that for the races.
Yeah, I heard that. I heard about that one time. He was doing a lecture and he didn't have
played
nothing
that
nice
for the races, the races would turn their back on all the information Dr. Ben was giving just by hearing that. Yeah. But you have to realize that Dr. Ben was in the same family with Legiasu. And when Legiasu was dethroned, his family was banned from Ethiopia. Mm. And when his father was almost dead, was dying, he asked to come back to Ethiopia, at least to die in Ethiopia. And Haile Selassie declined. him to come back to Ethiopia. And so Dr. Ben had a special place for Haile Selassie in his heart.
And it wasn't a good place. It
It
wasn't a
wasn't
good space.
a good space at all. So we had to protect the Rastas. We would play everything for them except that. Don't let the Rastas hear that, or else they'll turn their back on the knowledge.
Yeah.
And
They'll throw the
Dr.
baby
Ben,
and the bathwater out.
yeah, and Dr. Ben was giving us knowledge, you know. So when we talk about Ethiopia, ancient Ethiopia, when we talk about Aksum, we
Or
have to
even
realize.
Marcus Garvey. There's ones that will throw Marcus Garvey out the
Yeah,
window.
yeah, yeah. Yes. Because yes. But you see, at the same time, we have to realize that Haile Selassie was the only independent ruler on the continent when the continent was totally ruled by Europeans.
Mm-hmm.
When at the Belgium conference, 1884, 1886, they carved up Africa, but Africa still had independent nation in Liberia. Well, Liberia was a U.S. satellite, but Ethiopia was a free country in Africa.
Right.
But they were not invited to the table because Ethiopia wasn't a threat to Europe. You know, they didn't even really see themselves as part of Africa. They more saw themselves as part of the Middle East
Yeah.
because of the ruling people were Amhara, which were their language was Semitic, whereas you had like the Zagwe dynasty, which was Cushitic. So when you talk about Ge'ez and these languages stem from Arabia. But Arabia was also part of African civilizations before, because we have to know the
The invasion.
chronology.
Exactly.
We have to know the chronology. All this place was African civilizations before the hordes of the Eurasians started to come down, and then the black people slowly started to turn to mulattoes, and they slowly started to turn to something different and adopting different customs, you know, just like the Greeks.
Like India used to be a colony of Kemet.
Precisely, you know. So even Babylon, when I hear Rasis burning Babylon, I say, nah, burn Rome. You can't burn Babylon or call people Babylon, but Babylon is an African civilization.
But because the Bible, you know,
Because the Jews were not Africans. The Jews came with a diverse doctrine that was un-African. So as long as we align with the Jews, that I was on the Hazmatch. The Hazmatch is he had an interview with me. I don't know if you've seen it. The lions,
send it to me when you get a chance.
the lion's voice, and we were reasoning. It's recent, very recent, but we were reasoning. I'll send it to you. We were reasoning, and we were talking about the Jews. He said he cannot agree with me. The Jews were African people. I said, well, if you look at when they came into Alexandria, you'll find out that in Alexandria, the natives were pushed out of Alexandria, and it became a Greek and Jewish settlement. If you look at the archaeological finds in places like Lachish, when they got the bones and they looked at the shapes of the skulls, they realized that these people were unlike African people or the Badarian civilization. They were a Eurasian stock of people. So the Jews, the Hebrews, these are Eurasians. If you talk about the
Ooh, and
Falashas,
to push back on that Jewish, on that Hebrew part,
oh yeah, man, they push back. He pushed back a lot.
you're
And
gonna get some pushback on that.
he talk about the Beta Israel, the Falashas, but they were converted by Jewish Jewish people, Jewish communities from Saudi Arabia, from Yemen.
And
That's how they.
Israel don't acknowledge them. Israel treat them like crap.
Yeah, because I mean, right now Israel is run by the Ashkenazi, the Ashkenazi Jews,
Hmm.
which are from the Tsars, the, the the Russians and Europeans. Uh, so they spoke Yiddish, and then they went to study. They studied the Hebrew language. The Hebrew language comes from the Phoenician script, and they gave life to it. They gave life to it, and right now they speak Hebrew.
Hmm.
So they are saying that they are they are the ones that should be in this land because it was promised to them by God. A lot of the wars going on are religious wars,
Yep.
but not really religious wars. The religion is actually a cloak. It really has to do with commerce because the Levant is the control of the trade routes. That's what it was about, and it's still about that. The Suez Canal, it's still about that. That same, remember we spoke about getting to India, getting to the raw materials.
Hmm.
Britain, Britain gave up India only because their southern neighbor was easily accessible, which is Africa. They are very greedy people.
Yeah.
They had
And
they had
and Africa being bigger
they
than
had
India.
America. They had America. They kicked out the French. The French went to India. Then they decided to kick the French out of India, and they lost America because of the Civil War.
Mhm.
So sorry, not the Civil War, but the War of their independence, where they fought against America got their independence from Britain. You know?
Right. July 4th.
So all this was because of the industrial revolution age, where Japan joined, America joined, the up and coming industrializing nations.
Mhm.
Even Egypt tried to join by trying to take over Ethiopia and trying to take over the Sudan, but they failed, and Britain took them over.
Mhm.
That's the imperial age. Everyone wanted to be imperialists, trying to follow Portugal and Spain. Portugal and Spain were the first, then the French, the British, the Dutch, and so it continued. Then Japan tried to take over China. A whole sort of a lot of it was only the African that never was an imperialist. There's this book, I don't know if you can get it, but it's a must read.
Mhm.
The West, the West and the Rest of Us.
Do you have
By
the book? You can put them to
Yeah,
the
I have.
screen.
West and the rest of us. That was me, I'm looking for it. This is it. This is it here.
Okay. And the title is what's the title?
The West and the Rest of Us.
Okay.
White predators, black slavers, and the African elite.
Could they find that on Amazon
This-
perhaps?
I don't know if it's on Amazon. It could be, but it's a costly book.
Mm-hmm.
You know, yeah, it's not $20.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you may have to pay close to $100 for it, US. You know?
That's
And
not
of
bad.
course, well, for you, remember,
I
I'm
mean,
in the
especially if it's a good read, you know, people will spend $100 on nonsense.
well.
Why not spend $100 on your education?
Remember, I'm in St. Lucia, and 1 US is almost 3 EC.
Mhm.
So I would have to spend over $300 for that book.
Mhm.
And of course, the Lucia. The Lucia is one of the most important books you should have, because it's a record of all the sages, all those I mentioned: Kagemni, Ipor, Ankshashonke, Keti. Of course, my favorite book, 2000 Seasons by Aikweama. Aikweama is my favorite author.
Mm-hmm.
I have maybe 7 of his books.
Okay.
And a book many people don't know about, an author many people have never heard about, Vulindela Wubogo,
Cold
Cold
Wind.
Wind from the North. The prehistoric European origin of racism explained by Diop's two cradle theory.
Oh yeah, Diop is he ain't easy when he's talking about the northern and southern cradle. You know.
I have another I have another Chinwezu, Voices from 20th Century Africa.
Mhm.
Then I have this one is a must read.
That looks like the ring shout design.
Yeah, this is actually the Congolese Dikenga,
Mm,
the cosmogram.
right.
Yeah, if you look at it, you see the black, you see the colors, black, white, red, and yellow.
Mm-hmm.
The yellow represents rebirth, the red represents maturity, the white represents, the realm of the ancestor, death, and the black represents Kepa, birth. So birth,
Right.
maturity, death, and rebirth, or Kala, Tukala, November, and Musoni, separated by Kumapemba and Kunaseki, the physical world and the invisible world, the spiritual realm.
Yeah.
This one, it's a big book, The Fortunes of Africa by Martin Meredith. Good book.
Mm.
Well, I have hundreds of books
Right.
because I've
But it's
been,
good that you just, you gave a few reference points so people could go and,
yes,
do
yeah,
if they don't want to purchase the book, maybe they can get the ebook for a little cheaper,
yeah,
or
because a lot of the,
audio. They may not want to read it. There's some people who are just audio, so some of them might be in audio form. They can just play
well,
it.
a lot of the books I have, you can't find them on PDF or audio online.
Mm,
Yeah, you would have to buy them.
okay,
A few, yes, you can get, but
right,
I like to have them so I can go and sit in my hammock, and
exactly,
just
and read away.
relax and just read away. I'm a bibliophile. I love to read. I love books. Also, um, I love fiction, historical fiction.
Mhm.
I think that we need fiction, especially for our imagination,
Mhm.
and also our eloquence. So I also read like Ngugi, the African authors, Aikwe,
Okay.
what's the guy's name again? The Nobel Prize winner. Um, it just slips me right now. But I also read from like Schopenhauer. So I read all around.
Right.
Um, I'm also trying to get um, a good epic book of the Icelanders, because Clark said you have to read their books to
Oh, of
understand
course.
them,
Hmm.
know their environment, the fecundity that grew their minds.
Hmm.
You know? They
The same
started,
way, the same way they study us, we need to do them the same way. Study
yes,
them.
because Europeans know us more than we know ourselves.
Hmm.
Yeah, Europeans know us more than we know ourselves.
That's true.
So yeah, so we have to study them and study our ancient past. And there's other persons like Theophilo Benga. Of course, we need to read his works. Um, well, Wade Nobles, of course. This book is a very good book. Eh? The Island of Memes.
Okay.
It's not that expensive, but there he will speak about our fractured and fragmented psyches and souls, and what he
Wow,
calls
we
what
need
he
a
calls
podcast on that book.
yeah, what he calls the
Maybe.
kizungu. He calls it the kizungu zongu, tornadoes of the mind.
Mm.
You know, and sakusheti, deep introspection of who we are, our spiritualness. So this is and he's a master psychologist.
Okay. Okay.
I'm following
Mm-hmm.
from Francis Cresswell saying Amos Wilson, Franz Fanon, you know. Yeah. So it's good when you read the works of the ancestors. That empowers you. You kind of take in their essence.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So before I go, I just want to encourage all Rastas to read and study. Not for yourself, not for yourself alone, but to pass it on, and so the struggle continues, the knowledge keeps growing, you know, because we must be able to pass the baton, just like my teacher passed it to me. Right now, I have to be diligently looking for someone to pass it on to.
Right.
Because I would hate that when I'm not here, what would happen to the literature? Maybe somebody would just take it and say, what are you doing for all these books? Oh, just throw them in the garbage.
Exactly. Or find it in a thrift store somewhere.
You know? So I need someone to care for them, because my teacher had many children, but they didn't gravitate to the knowledge like I did. And it could be sometimes that, we are multidimensional, and what I show you, I may not show someone else may know a different side of me.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But
your
the
children
side,
sometimes are always the hardest ones to convince.
yeah. So the side of himself he exposed to me could be a different side that his family witness, his friends witness, you know. So I was the one to continue the journey that he started. So yeah, that's it. Any questions? You have any questions in the chat? Anything?
Oh no, Kushai Selassie was the last one. I think everybody else maybe just either dumbfounded or listening. But it's always next time. We can't get it all in one night.
Yes, it's true. Yes. Yeah. Next time I guess we can go into some literature. We can go into some books. We can go into the Island of Memes, Haiti's Unfinished Revolution, where he talks about
the psychology part of it.
The psychology. He goes into ones like Mackendal. A lot of people don't know who Mackendal was.
Mackendal was the truth.
Yes.
Mackendal was the truth. From Haiti? Talking about Mackendal from Haiti, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I won't say no more. We'll save it for, I know you know, but we'll save it for the ones who don't know.
Yeah.
Yes, and then now they hear the name Mackin down from Haiti, they can go research it if they want to know before we do a podcast on it.
Right. Before I go, let me just read a little piece of Aikwe Amo.
Okay.
Yeah, this book, 2000 Seasons, I think it should be in all studies. You know, my teacher always told me never to use the word library because we don't bury any lies. We expose them.
Right.
Yeah.
True.
Okay, let me see. Okay, here it is. No, no spring changes the desert. The desert remains. The spring runs dry. Not one spring, not 30, not 1,000 springs will change the desert. For that change, flood. For that change floods the waters of the universe in unison, flowing not to coax the desert, but to overwhelm it, ending its regime of death, that not a single perishable spring is the necessity. Receiving, giving, giving, receiving. All that lives is twin. Who would cast the spell of death? Let him separate the two. Whatever cannot give, whatever is ignorant even of receiving, knowing only taking, that thing is past its own mere death. It is a carrier of death. Woe the giver on the road to such a taker, for then the victim has found victorious death. Woe the race, too generous in the giving of itself, that finds a road not of regeneration, but a highway to its own extinction. Woe the race, woe the spring, woe the headwaters, woe the seers, the hearers, woe the utterers, woe the flowing water, people hustling to our death. What remains? To sing regret, curse ancestors, and through stagnant lives pass down the malediction on those yet to come? Easy the lazy existence, sweetly dragged the life spent waiting upon death, easy the falling slide, even for rememberers. Sorry, my eyes are a bit, and I don't have too much light in here. But
That's fine.
the prologue is powerful. The prologue is powerful, and
Yeah, it sounds like it's deep.
yeah, this book speaks about us, uh, like you, like me, voices howling in the wind at the zombified, and how much
Exactly.
how much success will we have by ourselves? So we must be able to raise people up, and only a flood can overwhelm the desert of no regeneration. That's why we need to unite, and we need to raise people up into the knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
It's not an individual, because that's what the Bible is about, you know. My relationship to
Your
this
personal
this
relation.
God
Exactly.
entity.
It's all
Yeah, this
about
God
me,
entity,
me, me.
how holy I am. But
Mm-hmm.
the African spirituality is different. It's about Ubuntu. It's
Us.
about the community. Because
Yes.
before it was a circle, Then it turned to the triangle of monarchy. And now it's the square of confinement.
Right.
So from the circle, the triangle, to the square. Okay, I think I'll stop here. It's a bit late.
Right, exactly. It's almost 11 on my side. It should be almost 12 on your side, right?
Yeah. And tomorrow I have this, I have to give a lecture and I have to bring some of my artifacts. I have this nice artifact. Would you like to see it?
Of course. Oh, wow.
Okay.
What is it?
It's called a fire spitter bowl from the
Okay.
Senufo people of West Africa.
Okay. So is that a female and a male on the other side?
Well, this looks like a female right here.
Okay. What is it made of? Bronze? What is that? Ceramic?
No, this is wood.
Oh, wood. Okay.
Yeah.
That's a true antique right there. The craftsmanship is beautiful. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I like that. So you're doing a lecture on that artifact tomorrow.
Yeah, so I'll be bringing some artifacts. I have this one. And I also have some masks as well.
Oh yeah. That's from West Africa as well.
It says
Yeah, I was saying that was from that's
This
from
is a
West
guru.
Africa too.
Yes, it's a guru mask from Ivory Coast. Because you know we were bird people. I see you have your bird right there.
Oh yeah, that's the falcon.
Yeah. So yeah, we were bird people. This is another.
Okay.
These are. I also have my This is from Zimbabwe,
Right.
from the Toga people.
Mm-hmm.
You see them there?
Oh yeah. That's what you call fine art.
Yeah. And they burn herbs, so this is the pipe at the end. So it tells the entire story of the Toga people.
Mm. Okay.
And their divinity they call Nyami,
Right.
which lives in the Zambezi River. Yeah, so I'm gonna be going when I'm an exhibition, bringing my stuff and some literature, and we're gonna have a good time.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. Sounds powerful for real. Those are the
Yeah,
type of things that need to happen. That's good.
yes,
I'm glad you're on that path right there. Keep doing the great work for real. Keep doing the great works. Oh yeah.
yeah.
But it's
So
always a pleasure.
yeah, always a pleasure. It's been a while
Honorable
too.
brother, it's always a pleasure. Always, always. We have to
Yeah,
meet up again.
yeah. But you look well. You look very well. Keep it up.
Yeah,
Whatever you do, keep on
I try
doing
to keep it positive. You know how it go.
it. Yeah, yeah.
Try to keep it positive. Don't let nobody kill my joy. You know.
Definitely, definitely. And we'll get that. You
Oh
will get
yeah,
that
they come all
because
the
we're
time. You have to just
because
trample it
remember
down and keep going.
because we're swimming against the tide.
Oh yes, oh yes, and
So
they come
we
from all
bound
kind of angles.
we bound to get exhausted.
Hmm.
So we must always know how to balance.
That's right.
You know? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Uncle Jasaneb, Dua Sanati, or Asante Sana, Dada Yangu. Okay. Thanks for having me. And hopefully I'll be we'll be doing this again and we can go through some literature. I
Okay.
hope I hope the people like it. I hope they share it,
Hmm.
and more people can maybe come on and we can have some discourse, ways forward, how we can do things together, because we have um, technological advancements, so we
Yeah.
can do things. We can put up projectors and have some live streams. Maybe talk to some students.
Oh yeah.
Talk to the Rastas. We have. I remember I had this WhatsApp group with some powerful brethren like Tau Tau Haramanuba. You know,
Hmm.
that time my elder was still there. Then we had Ras Jonas, Ras Kilimanjaro. Different powerful Rastafari. I mean, Rastafari that will seek us, not just
Right.
find us.
Exactly. Exactly.
So hopefully
Yeah.
we can
And this
do more.
podcast could stream anywhere. You can share screen to do presentation, PowerPoint, and
Yes,
as long
wonderful.
as you have internet and you could log in, it could show on your side where you are in your classroom or whatever it is that you're presenting.
Yeah, well, because we need that. We need the unity. We need, especially, I'm saying this for a reason because in America, it would be difficult because we are already a minority amongst our people.
Exactly.
And our people are a minority in America. But in the Caribbean, we are the majority.
Hmm.
And if we can get those bright minds, those inspirational voices to speak with our upcoming generations, our governments, our people,
I will come to
we
St. Lucia and do that. We need to talk.
yeah, we can we can
We
be
need to
very
talk.
inspirational because we are the majority,
I would love to.
unlike America, you know,
Exactly.
and then connect with the continent
Right.
and
Right.
bridge the gap.
Hmm.
Yeah. Okay, beloved.
For sure.
Yeah, nice talking to you, and we'll
Yes.
do this soon again. Just
Yes.
link me.
Okay, no problem. And don't forget
All
to
right.
send me those links too that you was telling me about tomorrow
Yeah.
whenever you get a chance. And then maybe
Okay.
Friday we could maybe furthermore discuss on how we could do these PowerPoint presentations to the
Right.
youth and things like that.
Yes. 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 Yes.
Like
Yes. Will do.
it's 2025. It's time to do the works. We
Of
talked
course.
about it for a long time. Now it's time to actually put it into manifestation.
Right. 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 Most of
And
all,
now that you have the government on your side, there's
hmm
no stopping us now. You know what I'm saying? It's
yeah.
just being there doing it. You know what I'm saying?
Yes. We just have to be correct with our information. So
Mhm.
we're they they beyond reproach, beyond reproof.
Yes.
You
It would
know?
just totally resonate with them from they hear it. There's no questions to be asked. It's
Right.
just doing now, you know?
Yes. Precisely.
And I'll be gratified to be a part of that doing.
Okay. Oh, and um, I think you had to set up something with Mfundishe. We never did.
Oh, you know, Infodici came on my blog talk radio some years
Oh,
ago. It's called
oh,
I'll send it to you. The title was called "We Are Stardust,"
oh, lovely.
and he talks about the continent being upside down too. I have
Ah,
Infodici's number from an elder that brought him down here some years
mm,
ago. So I'm going to
okay,
contact him because that'd be
okay.
dope to have. Even if he could come to St. Lucia, that'd definitely be some.
Ah, that would be magnificent.
Yes. Oh, look, we got Shai Selassie say Kemetic Rastafari is a must. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, man. Kemet is the root.
Mhm.
Kemet is the root. You know, remember Haile Selassie. We don't have to get rid of Haile Selassie.
No.
Haile Selassie, for me, Haile Selassie is as divine as Patrice Lumumba,
Hmm. Right.
as yes, as Samora Machel, as Kwame Nkrumah. You know, once we start trying to put one on top of the other, we'll find
Yes,
ourselves in
exactly.
confusion.
We got to
You
bring
know.
back balance. Exactly. And you know what? I'm
Yeah.
going to send you Infodici's phone number. I'll
Oh,
inbox.
oh, okay. Yes, send it to me,
That way you
please.
can, I don't even have to be the mediator or the middleman. You can go directly to the source.
All right, wonderful.
Because what we're talking about, that's what he does. You know what I'm saying? He'll be well open for that. You know?
Okay,
And he's
lovely.
already traveling back and forth to the continent anyway.
Yeah, I promised my teacher, not well, we I promised myself that
Yeah.
I would bring my teacher to Kemet one of these days. But he passed all of a sudden. But
Yeah, and
I
Felicia hosts trips to Kemet all the time.
yeah, I'd have to
We
I really need
organize
to meet
trips
him.
all the time. Okay.
Yeah. But there's this wonderful video with um I posted it on my page with Obadile Combon
Oh yeah, yeah. He's powerful too. He's
and the
powerful.
house, this
Mhm.
house he built.
It's built like a pyramid. Yes.
It's with the it actually represents the eight, the Kemanu.
Hmm.
It represents the eight, and yeah, have a look at that video. It's very inspirational. He's
Okay.
taking the vibes to a different level.
Oh yeah. He's been trying
Yeah,
to wake them up for a long time.
yeah,
Yeah.
he's powerful, but then his entire family is powerful.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. His parents. Hmm.
Oh yeah.
Hmm.
Okay, okay, Empress. Yeah,
Yes.
it seems
Yes.
we can go on and on and on.
Exactly. That's how it is, though, for real. That's how it is. Are we gonna link up tomorrow,
Yes, I.
Friday?
Okay,
Actually. Okay.
I.
All right.
Well, I had to send it. Uncle Justin, the Wnnefer.
Uncle Jeff. Exactly.